The day I was supposed to get my marriage license with my CEO fiancée, Chloe, her driver followed us right into City Hall. I recognized him instantly. He was Chloe's male assistant. I didn't need to be a genius to know that today's plans were about to go up in smoke. Seeing how close they were, I stopped in my tracks. Chloe didn't even realize I wasn't with her until she reached the counter. And when she did, she actually looked relieved. Sure enough, a second later, her assistant, Ryan, stepped forward and slid his own ID across the counter. And just like that, my marriage certificate with Chloe became theirs. I managed to ask a couple of token questions, but Ryan suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me, wailing in despair. "Ethan, man, it's all my fault. If it wasn't to establish residency so my son could get into a good school, I never would have resorted to a sham marriage with Chloe." He even made a show of trying to slam his head against the wall, crying that he'd rather die to atone for his sin. But I saw the sly look in his eyes and knew something was up. I tried to slip away unnoticed, but Chloe blocked my path. "Ryan's a single father. He's doing this for his son," Chloe said, her voice sharp. "Do you have to be so petty? It's just a piece of paper. As soon as his son is enrolled, I'll divorce him. What does it matter if you have to wait a little longer? Are you trying to drive him to suicide? Now, give Ryan half of your paycheck as compensation. If you play along nicely, I'll even let you take a picture with our marriage certificate to post in the family group chat. If not, you can forget about ever marrying me." I almost burst out laughing. "Then let's not," I said calmly. "I don't want the certificate, and I don't want you either." Chloe froze, clearly stunned that her threat hadn't worked for once. After a moment, she seemed to figure it out and scoffed. "Ethan Hayes, this is just another one of your games, isn't it? Playing hard to get? How can you be so selfish? It's hard enough for Ryan to make it in Chicago as a single dad. What's wrong with me, his boss, helping him out? You can get married anytime, but if Ryan waits, his son won't get into school. Can you take responsibility for ruining a child's future? You're so heartless. How could I ever trust you to be the father of my children?" Listening to her self-righteous speech, I didn't hold back. I slapped her hard. The entire office went silent. "Chloe, are you even listening to yourself?" I said, my voice dangerously low. "You married another man and you're telling me to be magnanimous? Have you lost your damn mind?" I just hit a woman, but I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ryan, still pretending he was going to bash his brains out to apologize. It was laughable. He was moving in slow motion, and his forehead barely tapped the wall with enough force to bruise a peach, let alone do any real damage. It was a terrible performance, but of course Chloe bought it. As she stared in shock, I grabbed Ryan by the hair and slammed his head into the wall for real. "If you're going to do it right," I snarled. After a couple of solid thuds, he went limp. I tossed him to the floor. Chloe's face flushed with rage. "Ethan Hayes!" she shrieked. But before she could say another word, I turned and walked out, not looking back, leaving the stunned crowd at City Hall behind me. It was getting dark by the time I got outside. Seeing couples walking hand in hand, a bitter feeling washed over me. It was ridiculous, really. Chloe and I had been together for 6 years, and we still hadn't gotten married. First, she said marriage would hurt her career, that we needed to focus on work. To support her dream, I quit my stable, high-paying job and moved with her to Chicago to start her company. I worked myself to the bone, schmoozing and drinking at endless networking events until I finally helped her land the CEO title. But once the business was stable, she started inventing new ways to test my love. I put up with all of it because I just wanted to marry her. I never realized that my devotion was seen as desperation. The more you care, the less you're worth. Just yesterday, I'd finished a design proposal that I'd poured a year of my life into. Ryan demanded I give it to him, calling it my final test. When I hesitated, he accused me of not truly loving Chloe. That's when Chloe finally agreed to marry me. At the time, getting married seemed more important than any project. I was so excited I didn't sleep a wink, and I got to City Hall early to get a number and wait. And just when it was our turn, Ryan swooped in and married her instead. I barely questioned it, and Chloe immediately defended him, calling me disgusting for having such a filthy mind. But if she really didn't have feelings for him, why didn't she help any of the other single parents at the company? Why was Ryan the only one who got her special attention? It was only then that I finally understood. Chloe's heart had strayed long ago. The tests were just excuses because she never wanted to marry me. My stomach growled, and I realized I hadn't eaten anything all day. I'd skipped breakfast to get here early, all to pave the way for someone else. What a waste. Shaking my head, I pushed the thoughts away and found a diner to grab some food. I'd only had a few bites when I saw Chloe's new Facebook post, a picture of her and Ryan's marriage certificate. My coworkers were flooding the comments with congratulations, and of course, mocking me. So what if Ethan's the CEO's boyfriend? Ms. Vance married her assistant, one wrote. Another added, what's that old fossil got on a young, handsome guy like Ryan? I knew Chloe was just trying to get a reaction out of me. It was her go-to move. Whenever I didn't do exactly what she wanted, she'd flaunt her connection with Ryan to make me feel insecure until I came crawling back, apologizing. In the past, I always gave in, compromising over and over just to keep the peace and move us closer to marriage. But this time, I just smirked and liked the post. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was my parents. They'd seen the post. Ethan, what is this on Chloe's Facebook? Why did she marry someone else? My parents are getting older, and they've been anxious for me to settle down, always hoping Chloe and I would finally get married. But Chloe kept putting it off. She felt so much sympathy for Ryan's struggles, but never once considered mine. I was about to answer them when a message from Chloe popped up on my phone. Ethan, I made sure your parents could see that post. I bet they're freaking out. Apologize to Ryan, and I'll tell them it was all a misunderstanding. If you don't, you'll regret it. I ignored her text and spoke calmly to my parents. Mom, Dad, Chloe and I broke up. I'm gonna listen to you. I'm coming home. My parents had never been fond of Chloe. They thought she was too ambitious, not the kind of person you build a quiet life with. But I'd left everything behind to be with her. Turns out they were right all along. Good, my dad said. We'll start setting you up. After hanging up, I bought a bus ticket for the next day and took a cab back to the apartment to pack. As I reached the front door, I could hear laughter and happy chatter from inside. I pushed the door open and saw 3 pairs of shoes by the entrance, a matching parent and child set. I recognized one pair as Chloe's. They were a birthday gift from Ryan, a cheap pair of knockoffs you'd find at a flea market, poorly made from shoddy materials, yet she treated them like treasure. Meanwhile, the $1,000 designer shoes I'd bought her were collecting dust in the closet. She'd said my taste was tacky and that she'd be embarrassed to be seen in them. For a while, I actually believed something was wrong with my sense of style and even humbly asked Ryan for fashion advice. Looking back, it was clear she just didn't like anything that came from me. I kicked their shoes out of the way and walked inside. There was Ryan, lounging on my sofa in my bathrobe, watching TV like he owned the place. His son, Leo, was in the middle of the living room, hacking away at the rug with a pair of scissors. My mom had spent weeks knitting that rug for me, her eyes red from the effort, and now it was just a pile of shredded yarn in the corner. But what really sent my blood pressure through the roof was seeing him using a photo of my late grandmother as a coloring book, scribbling all over it with markers. I snatched the picture out of his hands. What the hell are you doing here? I demanded. Leo, seeing his toy taken away, jutted out his chin. Mommy said we could. Hearing the commotion, Chloe came out from the kitchen. She has terrible allergies and can't stand the smell of cooking oil. She hadn't set foot in a kitchen in all the years I'd known her. Yet here she was, holding a spatula, cooking a meal for Ryan and his son. Leo, what is it, sweetie? She started, moving to comfort him, but she froze when she saw me. Chloe, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. When did you become a mom? I must have missed the memo. She paused for a second before shrugging it off. Don't be so dramatic. Leo's never had a mother figure. What's the harm in letting him call me that? Anyway, what are you doing back so early? I had to laugh. It's my apartment. I can come back whenever I want. The real question is, who gave you permission to let them in? Chloe looked at me as if I were the unreasonable one. Ryan's old place was too far from Leo's new school. The commute would have been terrible for his studies. Our apartment is close, so I told them they could stay here. It's big enough for them until Ryan finds something permanent. And what if he never finds a suitable place? I asked. She glanced lovingly at Ryan and his son. Then they'll stay. It's not a big deal, just setting 2 extra plates at the table. I don't agree to them staying here, I said through gritted teeth. Her face clouded over. Ethan, have you no compassion? I shot back with a cold laugh. Oh, I'm nowhere near as compassionate as you. You're so compassionate you married your assistant and moved him and his kid into our home. Just then, Ryan, who had been silent, finally spoke up. If Ethan doesn't want us here, Leo and I will leave. It'll just make getting to school a bit harder. Chloe, you've already done so much for us by helping with his enrollment. I couldn't possibly ask for more. As he spoke, he and Leo exchanged a look. A second later, the kid lunged at me and bit my leg, hard. He drew blood, but he wasn't done. He started pounding my shins with his little fists. You're a bad man, he screamed. You can't make us leave. This is my house now. You leave. Ethan, he's just a kid. He doesn't know any better, Ryan said placidly. Before I could respond, Chloe jumped in. Ryan, you and Leo are staying. Ethan, Ryan felt so guilty about what happened at City Hall that he bought you a gift to make it up to you, and this is how you act. You're the one being childish. I looked over. The special gift was a half-eaten piece of cake. I'm not hungry, I said coldly, and I'm not a garbage disposal. I don't do leftovers. Ryan immediately started his victim routine again. Chloe, I know Ethan thinks my gift is cheap, but it was all I could afford. If he doesn't like it, he could just say so instead of being so nasty about it. The whole scene made my skin crawl. I couldn't deal with it anymore, so I went to the bedroom to start packing. Chloe followed me in. Ethan, I'm sorry, she said, her voice suddenly soft. I was surprised she was actually apologizing. But then came the real reason. But can you please just let them stay for a little while? Just until Ryan finds a new place. I'll make them leave, I promise. And then we can get married as my way of making it up to you, okay? So it was still about him. I let out a cold laugh and pulled my arm away. Don't bother. I'll move out. You three can have the place to yourselves. I turned back to my suitcase and continued packing. When she saw that her sweet-talking wasn't working, Chloe's expression hardened. A flicker of contempt crossed her face. Ethan, do you really think I can't see what you're doing? You're just trying to use reverse psychology on me. Fine. I tried to be reasonable. Do whatever you want. With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I just shook my head and kept packing. The most valuable things I owned were in my office. Years of client files and design concepts. They were my entire career, my livelihood. But when I opened my portfolio, I found my meticulously organized work covered in crayon scribbles. The text was completely illegible. On the back of some pages were crude, elementary school math problems. It was obvious who was responsible. Leo might be just a kid, but Ryan knew exactly how important those documents were to my career. This was deliberate. I stormed back into the living room, slammed the ruined portfolio down in front of Ryan, and hauled him to his feet by his collar. The memory of what happened at City Hall was still fresh, and he started stammering in fear. Ryan, did you tell your son to do this? I snarled. Seeing his father in trouble, Leo, who had been quietly playing on a phone, suddenly threw it to the ground and collapsed into a heap, wailing. Mommy, the mean uncle is hurting me. Chloe rushed in from the kitchen, still wearing her dishwashing gloves. She saw me drop Ryan to the floor, and her eyes blazed with fury. Without a word, she raised her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist midair. I've been letting you get away with too much, I said, my voice low. Try that again. Ethan, I can't believe I was so wrong about you, she spat. You're really going to attack them just because Leo drew on some of your papers? I couldn't help but laugh, a cold, bitter sound. So she knew, even if Ryan and his kid were clueless. She, as the CEO, knew exactly what those documents were worth, and she had let it happen. It was pathetic. Before I could say anything, Ryan scrambled over, picking up a broken jade pendant from the floor near where Leo had thrown his tantrum. He sighed dramatically. Chloe, don't blame Ethan. It's my fault for not raising my son right. It's a shame, though. This was a family heirloom, a protective charm for Leo. I guess this is just our karma. At his words, Chloe's eyes fixed on the broken pendant. Her expression shifted from anger to outrage. Ethan, look what you did, she screamed at me. You're going to pay for this 10 times what it was worth. Ryan hid a smirk and then put on a pained expression. Chloe, I couldn't possibly ask Ethan for money. If anything, I should be the one paying him. He pulled out his phone and pretended to initiate a transfer, but I could clearly see him type in a single cent. He had no intention of paying for anything. Chloe snatched the phone out of his hand. This was your family heirloom, your only connection to your past. We can't just let it go. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. Ethan, because Ryan was kind enough to defend you, I won't demand 10 times the value. But you will go get your bank statements, give him everything you have, and then you will get on your knees and beg him and his son for forgiveness. I had to laugh. An heirloom? That thing looks like a piece of colored glass from a dollar store. And for that, you want all my savings and an apology. I refused flatly. Not a chance. I wouldn't give him a dime if my life depended on it. And I will never, ever apologize to them. My refusal pushed Chloe over the edge. Ethan, you're the one in the wrong here. Ryan and I are trying to be reasonable and you're still acting like this? If you keep this up, I swear, I will break up with you. I just gave her a cold smile. Funny, I was just about to say the same thing. Let's do it. The words had barely left my mouth before Chloe's jaw dropped. She had expected me to beg and plead like I always did, not to agree instantly. Ethan, do you have any idea what you're saying? She stammered. I just nodded calmly. You're the one who suggested it. I'm just agreeing. Is there a problem? Chloe was speechless, her face turning beet red. Ryan, who had been enjoying the show from the sidelines, now stepped in to play the peacemaker. Ethan, I had no idea you disliked us this much. To think you'd break up with Chloe just to get rid of us. I've overstayed my welcome. I'll take Leo and go, so we won't be a bother anymore. With that, he picked up Leo and made a dramatic exit. Chloe hesitated for a second, then ran after them. Before she left, she shot one last threat over her shoulder. Fine, Ethan, we're done. And go ahead and leave. Let's see how long you last on your own this time. Chloe assumed this was just another one of my tantrums. I remembered the time she'd made me take the fall for one of Ryan's mistakes. We'd had a huge fight, and I'd stormed out, determined to end things for good. It took her a while to find me, and when she did, she threw her arms around me and sobbed. Ethan, I was just so worried that if something happened to Ryan, his son would have no one. It was wrong of me not to think about your feelings. But I couldn't just do nothing. Please, forgive me. She seemed so sincere, and with our friends and coworkers urging me to give her another chance, I eventually forgave her for the sake of our history. That's why she thought this was just another tantrum, that all she had to do was cry and I'd come running back. She was wrong. This time I was really leaving. I was done. After she left, I went back to packing. My eyes fell on the wall, covered with 999 photos of us from our travels all over the world. It all felt so surreal. It was during our 3rd year together. The company was finally taking off. We were working until 3 or 4 in the morning every day, but it felt like we were building something real. Then one night, while working late, Chloe complained of a splitting headache and collapsed. I rushed her to the emergency room. She was stable, but the initial test results were grim. We suspect it's late-stage brain cancer, the doctor told me. We're running more tests, but you should prepare yourselves for the worst. I'll never forget that night, pacing the hospital hallway after the doctor gave us the news. We had fought through so much to get where we were, and just when things were finally looking up, it felt like it was all about to be taken away. When Chloe found out, she just held me and cried for hours. Finally, she grabbed my hand and said that all these years, we'd been so focused on work that we'd never just enjoyed our time together. She wanted to spend whatever time she had left making memories with me. So we put the company on hold and started traveling, visiting every landmark we could think of. She, who had always hated having her picture taken, insisted we take a photo together everywhere we went. She said that way, after she was gone, I could burn the photos so she'd have them with her and wouldn't be lonely. I truly believed I was going to lose her. Then, 3 months later, a second opinion from a specialist came back. It was a benign tumor, easily removable with a minor procedure. We were so overjoyed we just held each other and cried, promising we'd never let anything come between us. But now there was Ryan, and for him, she had repeatedly let him hurt me, let him take what was mine. She had forgotten her promise. Snapping back to the present, I took a deep breath and one by one, I tore every single photo off the wall and threw them in the trash. When I finished packing, I looked at my single, half-empty suitcase and let out a bitter laugh. I had lived here with Chloe for 6 years, yet in this huge apartment, all my worldly possessions couldn't even fill one bag. Meanwhile, Ryan and his son had been here less than a day, and their junk was already overflowing from every corner. There were still 2 huge boxes of their stuff out on the patio. It felt like I was the guest in my own home. I shook my head and checked my bank account on my phone. That at least brought me some comfort. Love could betray me, but the numbers in my account wouldn't. For years, even as the company became profitable, pulling in millions annually, Chloe always complained about how much pressure she was under. She'd nag me about spending too much, accusing me of not thinking about our future, about the costs of marriage, kids, and school. I took her seriously and became incredibly frugal. Even as a top executive, I ate the cheapest thing on the menu in the company cafeteria every day and took the bus to work, rain or shine. As a result, I'd managed to save a decent amount of money, enough to start fresh back home. I shook my head one last time, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. But as I opened it, the sweet smell of grapes drifted in from the patio. I stopped, my eyes drawn to the grapevine I had planted. Because I loved grapes, Chloe had planted it for me and even built a swing next to it. We used to spend summer evenings out there, swinging, eating fresh grapes, and watching the moon. The grapes were ripe again. I picked one and popped it in my mouth. It was still sweet, but Chloe and I were different people now. For the last 2 years, I'd been the only one tending to the vine. And when the fruit was finally ready, she didn't share the first bunch with me. She gave the best ones to Ryan and his son. The thought spurred me to action. I went to the shed, got an axe, and chopped down the grapevine and the swing set, cutting them down like I was cutting away the last 6 years of my life. When I was done, I walked out of that apartment for the last time and dialed a number I hadn't called in a while. "Mark," I said, "you still looking for people?" On the other end was Mark Peterson, my best friend since childhood. While I had followed Chloe to Chicago, he had gone back home after college to build something there. In the last few years, his apparel company had really taken off, and he was making a name for himself in the industry. He'd called me a dozen times over the past year, trying to convince me to come home and work with him, offering me a package that blew Chloe's offer out of the water. But I could never bring myself to leave her, so I always said no. He was surprised to hear me bring it up. After a beat, he said, "Of course, man. You're one of the best designers in the business. I'd be thrilled to have you. But I thought Chloe was set on staying in Chicago, that you wanted to build a life with her there. Is she okay with you two being long distance?" I shook my head, a bitter taste in my mouth. "There's no she anymore. We broke up. I'm heading home to let my parents set me up." There was a stunned silence on the other end. Then he recovered. "Hey, it's okay, man. You're a catch. You'll find someone great. Besides, things have changed back home. It's not the small town you remember. And at my company, there's none of that corporate backstabbing or soul-crushing overtime. You come work for me, you'll be the head of design, profit sharing, and a base salary of at least 30 grand a month." I was stunned by his offer. At Chloe's company, my base salary was the lowest of any employee. She claimed it was so I could lead by example in practicing austerity, and that in this economy, I was lucky to be making that much. I'd actually believed her and never even thought about looking for another job. I couldn't believe how badly she'd been exploiting me. 6 years of my life, completely wasted. I snapped out of it and chatted with Mark for a few more minutes, promising to see him once I got my affairs in order. After the call, I grabbed the deed to the apartment and went straight to a real estate agent. My parents had bought it for me outright, as a wedding gift for me and Chloe. Chloe had once tried to convince me to sell it to raise capital for the company, but luckily my mom was sick at the time, so we couldn't get the paperwork done. The agent verified my identity, and soon the apartment was listed for sale online. From there, I went to the office to talk to HR about my resignation. The HR manager told me I needed Chloe's final approval and that I should call her. I tried calling her a dozen times, but she didn't pick up. Finally, the manager called her from the office line. She answered immediately. "Ms. Vance, Ethan Hayes is. The company seal is in my desk. I'm busy. Just handle it yourself and don't bother me with trivial things," Chloe snapped before hanging up. With her approval, the HR manager processed my resignation without another word. A moment later, a provocative message from Ryan popped up on my phone. It was a picture of him, his son, and the ever-arrogant Chloe on a roller coaster at an amusement park. The caption read, "A wise man knows when he's beaten." So that's why she was so busy. She was at an amusement park with them. Still, I had him to thank. If it weren't for his distraction, there's no way Chloe, who valued money above all else, would have let me walk away without a fight. I smirked and typed back, "Some people love digging through the trash. I'm happy for him." The second I hit send, my phone rang. It was Chloe. I knew exactly what had happened. Ryan had played the victim, and now she was calling to lecture me. But this time, I didn't even bother answering. I just declined the call and blocked her number. After finishing the last of my paperwork with HR, I was ready to leave for good. But as I walked out of the office, I was surrounded by a group of my coworkers. "Ethan, what's going on? Why are you leaving all of a sudden?" one asked. "Was it that snake Ryan? Did he say something? We'll go set him straight," another chimed in. "If you're quitting, we're quitting too," a third declared. Many of the people sticking up for me were designers I had personally mentored over the years. There was a time when everyone in the company looked up to me, treated me with respect. But as soon as Ryan started gaining influence, many of them were quick to throw me under the bus to get on his good side. Seeing that so many still had my back warmed my heart. "It's all right," I told them. "It was my decision to leave. I've got something better lined up. Don't worry about me." But even as they walked me to the door, many of them, including some of the most vital people in the department, were still grumbling about how unfair it was. I turned for one last look at the skyscraper that housed our office. I once believed we would build this company into a national powerhouse. But now, with its foundations rotting and its people losing faith, it was clear the whole thing was destined to collapse. It was only a matter of time. As I stepped out of the building, I got a text from the real estate agent. "Mr. Hayes, we found a buyer. If you can have the apartment cleared out, we can sign the papers tomorrow." "Great, thank you," I replied. I took a cab back to the apartment and called some movers. I had them pack up every last thing belonging to Chloe, Ryan, and Leo and dump it all on the curb. The entire time, Ryan was spamming my phone with pictures of his family fun day with Chloe. Chloe's on the Ferris wheel with me and Leo. People People keep saying we look like the perfect family, one message read. Another said, Chloe even rented out the whole park for us and had our names put up in lights. Bet she never did that for you, huh? I ignored it all. Chloe didn't come home that night. I didn't care. I had the best night's sleep in years. The next morning, I signed the papers with the new owner, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the bus station. On the way, I ran right into Chloe and Ryan, who were just leaving a nearby preschool after enrolling Leo. Ryan was carrying Leo, and Chloe was on his arm, beaming like she was the happiest woman alive. They looked like a perfect little family. A woman walking by even commented, "What a beautiful family. The parents are so in love. That little boy is so lucky." Chloe just smiled, basking in the compliment. Then she saw me. She froze, and with the guilty look of someone caught red-handed, she quickly dropped Ryan's arm, a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" she asked. Then her expression shifted, and she frowned. "Wait, it's a work day. Are you skipping work? That's a dock in pay. Did you skip work just to follow me? Ethan, when are you going to stop this nonsense?" I had to laugh. I'd been gone for a full day, and she hadn't even noticed. She wasn't just a terrible fiancée, she was a terrible boss too. "Chloe, I quit," I said simply. She didn't believe me. "You quit? So yesterday it was breaking up, today it's quitting? Ethan, this has gone far enough. Stop it." Ryan, ever the actor, stepped in. "Chloe, calm down. I'm sure Ethan realizes he made a mistake. He probably followed you here to apologize but was too embarrassed to say anything. Don't be mad at him." Chloe's mood instantly brightened. "Fine," she said, a smug look on her face. "If you want my forgiveness, you can have it. But first, you will apologize to Ryan. Also, he has trouble sleeping, so you're giving him the master bedroom. You can sleep in the office. And Leo is a growing boy, and takeout is so unhealthy, so you'll be cooking all their meals from now on. That's non-negotiable." I almost laughed out loud. She wanted me to be their live-in maid. I had planned on telling her about the apartment later, but since she was here, now was as good a time as any. "Chloe, I can't do any of that. I sold the apartment. All of your things are on the curb out back. If you don't want the garbage collectors to take them, I'd suggest you hurry." Her eyes widened in shock. "You sold the apartment? Why wouldn't you tell me something like that?" "It's my property," I said coldly. "I don't need your permission to sell it." Ryan could barely contain his glee, but he still managed to stir the pot. "Ethan, I can't believe you'd go so far as to sell your home just to get rid of us. Since you hate me that much, I'll go with Chloe to get a divorce right now. We'll be out of your hair for good." Chloe looked genuinely concerned. "But you just gave up your apartment. You used the security deposit for Leo's tuition. Where will you go?" Ryan wiped a fake tear from his eye. "What can we do? Ethan doesn't want us around. I guess Leo and I will just have to sleep under a bridge. It'll be cold, but at least we won't be a burden to anyone." Leo then spat in my direction and stuck his tongue out. "You're a mean bully. Mommy, make him stop." That set Chloe off. "Ethan, this has gone too far," she snapped. "You get that sale canceled right now. That was supposed to be our home. If you don't, I swear you will never, ever marry me." Hearing that same threat for the 100th time, I just laughed. "Chloe, are you forgetting something? We already broke up. What marriage are you talking about?" Her eyes went wide, and she seemed to stop breathing for a second. "Ethan, when did we break up?" I couldn't resist kindly reminding her. "Chloe, you're the one who said you wanted to break up yesterday, and I agreed. Have you forgotten already?" Recognition finally dawned on her face. "You were just saying that because you were angry, right?" she asked, stunned. "Chloe, I've never been more serious." At my words, her face fell, and a hint of anger crept into her voice. "Ethan, you're really going to break up with me over something as small as me marrying Ryan? I was just trying to help Leo get into school. Are you really still hung up on that?" Ryan started beating his chest, forcing out a couple of crocodile tears. "Ethan, it's all my fault. I know it is," he wailed. "I know it was wrong to take your place at City Hall, but I was desperate for my son's sake. Be mad at me, but don't take it out on Chloe by joking about a breakup. She works so hard to provide for everyone, and you, her boyfriend, instead of helping, you just sit at home letting her support you. How could you be so cruel as to break up with her now?" Ryan was practically shouting, and all the other parents dropping off their kids stopped to watch the drama unfold. They immediately pegged me as a petty, freeloading boyfriend, shooting me looks of contempt and whispering among themselves, "A grown man living off a woman's money. What a disgrace," one of them muttered. "Come on, man, your girlfriend was just trying to help someone. No need to be such a jerk about it," another said. "Yeah, especially since you're mooching off her. What right do you have to act all high and mighty?" It's easy for them to talk when they don't know the first thing about it. And Chloe knew the truth. She knew I'd poured my own money and all my energy into her and the company. I wasn't some freeloader. She was where she was today because of me. She knew Ryan was lying, but she just stood there and let him slander me. As the crowd judged and condemned me, she didn't say a single word in my defense. I knew she was just mad that I'd agreed to the breakup and wanted to use the crowd to put me in my place. It was her MO whenever she was angry. She'd find a way to punish me, either by disappearing for a day and driving me insane with worry, or by posting vague, intimate-looking pictures with Ryan on Facebook just to get under my skin. In the past, it would have crushed me. But now, all I felt was regret for ever being foolish enough to fall for someone like her, for throwing away my career and my youth on a woman who didn't deserve it. I glanced at Chloe. She had no intention of stepping in. Fine. If she wasn't going to defend me, I'd do it myself. I shot a cold glare at the crowd. You all think I'm being petty? I said, my voice sharp. Let's see how generous you are when your partner goes off and marries someone else. And for the record, I'm not a freeloader. I haven't taken a single dime from Chloe. In fact, she's the one who's been spending my money. Then I pulled out my phone and brought up a screenshot. The moment they saw it, the color drained from Chloe and Ryan's faces. They were frozen to the spot. The screenshot showed the records of every paycheck I had ever transferred into her account, along with a list of her expenses from our joint credit card. For years, she told me we needed to save for the wedding, so I transferred my entire salary to her for safekeeping. I felt bad about how hard she worked, so I cut back on everything. I used toothbrushes until they were falling apart and wore socks with holes in them that I'd patched myself. It turned out all the money I'd scrimped and saved had been spent by Chloe on Ryan and his son. At first, I just assumed she had expensive taste and didn't think much of it. But after what happened at City Hall, something didn't feel right, so I went to the bank and pulled the detailed statements. That's when I saw it. The vast majority of the money had gone to them. A $30,000 watch for him, a $100,000 sports car, toys for the kid that cost thousands. She bought it all without a second thought, while I was pinching every penny. I was such an idiot. As soon as I showed them the screenshot, the tide of public opinion turned instantly. The same people who had been sneering at me were now glaring at Chloe and Ryan. Wow, spending her boyfriend's money on her side piece and his kid, someone said. That poor guy. He gives her everything and she just lies about him. Trash belongs with trash. They deserve each other. Keep them off the market so they don't ruin anyone else's life. Chloe's face flushed crimson with embarrassment. She shot me a cold look. Ethan, you're really going to be this petty? You're going to make a scene over a little bit of money? A little money? She'd spent over $150,000 of my hard-earned savings on them, and she called it a little money? This was the same woman who would nickel and dime me over a $3 cup of ramen if I asked her to pick one up for me. I used to think it was just her quirky way of showing affection. Now I realized the truth. She kept such close tabs because she never loved me at all. Taking a deep breath, I looked at her coolly. Chloe, we're broken up. That makes us strangers. And with strangers, you settle your debts. She finally realized I was serious. Her expression hardened, and she resorted to threats. Ethan, don't forget who signs your paychecks. If you insist on this, don't blame me when I fire you. Ryan looked triumphant but put on a concerned face. Ethan, it's a tough job market out there. Maybe you should just apologize to Chloe. I ignored him and just smirked at Chloe. Chloe, I already told you. I quit yesterday. Don't you remember? For a second, she looked stunned, but she quickly recovered, a contemptuous smile playing on her lips. My approval is required for any resignation. I didn't receive a letter from you yesterday, and I certainly didn't sign anything. How could you possibly have quit? Ethan, is this just another one of your pathetic games? I just smiled and pulled the signed and stamped resignation form from my pocket. Is that right? You must have a short memory, Ms. Vance. Why don't you take a look at this? She glanced at the paper, and her eyes widened. A second later, looking like she'd seen a ghost, she snatched the form out of my hand. She stared at the official company seal, bright red against the white paper, and swallowed hard. No, that's impossible. How did you get this? I never saw any resignation paperwork. Before I could answer, a smug look flashed across Ryan's face. Ethan, I know you don't like me, he said, feigning concern, but you shouldn't throw away your entire future just to be spiteful. Forging a company document to get back at Chloe. If anyone finds out, the consequences could be. He let the sentence hang, but Chloe caught his meaning immediately. Her eyes blazed with fury as she turned to me. So it's a forgery, which means the seal is fake too. Ethan, do you have any idea how illegal that is? She pressed her fingers to her temple, affecting a look of weary resignation. But, for the sake of what we once had, I'm willing to overlook this. If you come back to work and cooperate with Ryan to get results, we can pretend this whole forgery incident never happened. I'll even forget about the breakup. Otherwise, you can expect to hear from my lawyers." This was classic Chloe. She trusted Ryan, a man she'd known for less than a year, with her phone password and company secrets, yet she always assumed the absolute worst of me, the man she'd been with for 6 years. Every document I ever gave her, she scrutinized like a detective, convinced I was plotting to undermine her. I just scoffed. "Do whatever you want." Seeing that her threats and her olive branch had both failed, she flew into a rage and immediately called HR. "Get our lawyers on the phone right now. Ethan Hayes has forged company documents. I'm suing him." There was a pause on the other end of the line before the HR manager spoke, his voice full of confusion. "Faked his resignation? Ms. Vance, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Hayes officially resigned yesterday." "What? He resigned? So the form was real? The seal was real?" Now it was Chloe's turn to be stunned. "How could you process his resignation without my direct approval? Who gave you permission to use my seal?" The HR manager stammered. "But, Ms. Vance, I did ask you. You said it was fine." Chloe froze for a second before vehemently denying it. "That's a lie. I never agreed to anything. I see what's going on. Ethan must have bribed you." The manager's face went pale, and he sounded close to tears. "Ms. Vance, I didn't take anything. I called you yesterday evening. You told me to just handle it and not to bother you. You said the seal was in your desk and to get it myself." The pieces finally clicked into place for Chloe. Her face went white, but she was too proud to admit her mistake. Instead, she turned on the HR manager. "Even if I did say that, shouldn't you have known to ask for more details on something so important? If you can't even handle a simple task like this, you're useless to me. You're fired." After hanging up, she looked at me, her expression softening. "Ethan, this is all just a big misunderstanding. I thought it was some minor issue, that's why I told him to handle it. If I had known it was about you resigning, I never would have approved it. It's the HR manager's fault for not being clear. Ethan, I don't want you to leave. We can just pretend this never happened." I laughed to myself. In her world, nothing concerning me was ever important. I remembered the time I drank so much at a client dinner that I passed out on the street. Someone called her to come get me, but she hung up and completely forgot. Yet when Ryan got a paper cut, she stopped a board meeting to drive him to the hospital and hired a team of specialists to look at it. The difference was painfully obvious. I gave her a cold look. "Chloe, it's not up to you whether it counts or not. I followed the proper procedure. Legally, I no longer work for you." Seeing that I wouldn't give her an out, she lost her temper again. "Ethan, are you ever going to stop? I'm trying to be nice here, and you're just throwing it back in my face. What kind of job do you think you can get without me? I can have you blacklisted from this entire industry with a single phone call." Ryan grabbed my arm, his face a mask of fake concern. "Ethan, think about what you're doing. It's not worth throwing away your career just to prove a point." I knew he wasn't concerned about my career. He just didn't want to lose the workhorse who did all the jobs he didn't want to do. I pulled my arm away and was about to tell him off when my phone rang. I fumbled with it and accidentally answered on speaker. A cheerful, familiar voice boomed from the phone. "Ethan, what's the holdup? Are you on your way yet? Your new office is all set up. You're in charge as soon as you get here, so don't keep me waiting." It was my friend, Mark. The second he finished speaking, the entire area fell silent. Chloe, in particular, just stood there, staring at me as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But she was a seasoned businesswoman. The shock in her eyes lasted only a second before it was replaced by a cold fury. She scoffed, her gaze filled with resentment. "So that's why you've been acting so smug. You already had another job lined up." Before I could respond, Ryan saw his chance to play the hero. He grabbed my arm, his face a mask of anguish. "Ethan, how could you? Chloe needs you now more than ever. How could you betray her like this for your own gain? Do you have any idea how much she's invested in you? The time, the opportunities? This is a betrayal of her trust." He delivered the lines with such passion you'd think I'd committed treason. Hearing his words, Chloe seemed to regain her confidence. She crossed her arms, looking down her nose at me. "Ryan's right. Ethan, you want to leave? Fine. But first, we have some accounting to do." She gestured to the HR manager with her chin. "Get me a pen and paper." He quickly and respectfully obliged. Chloe took the pen and, without even glancing at me, began scribbling furiously on the page. When she was done, she slammed the paper down on the table in front of me. "You want to leave? Fine. First, you can pay back everything you owe the company." I took one look at the list and couldn't help but laugh. It was a ridiculous list of completely fabricated charges. Professional training fees. 4 skills learned on the job, including project management, market analysis, and client negotiation, $100,000. Disruption of business fee. For unauthorized resignation, damaging company morale and causing administrative chaos, $100,000. Emotional distress damages. For betraying 6 years of my love and trust, causing significant mental anguish, $200,000. All told, it came to a neat $800,000. Couldn't believe my eyes. For years, I'd taken the lowest salary in the company, done all the grunt work, and handled every dirty job Ryan wouldn't touch, and I never said a word. And now she wanted $800,000 from me? I didn't have a fraction of that in my savings. Was I supposed to have been paying for the privilege of working for her all this time? Seeing the look on my face, Chloe smiled, a cruel, triumphant expression. Ethan, you can walk out that door anytime you like. Just pay the $800,000, and we'll call it even. The absurd number was clearly just a power play, designed to put me in my place. I slowly looked up at her, my brow furrowed. And if I don't? I said. You know as well as I do that none of this is legitimate. If you think you have a case, feel free to sue me. She just laughed, a dismissive, condescending sound, as if she'd known I'd say that all along. It seems Ryan was right about you. You've been planning to betray me for a while. Good thing I was prepared. With that, she slammed another document down on the table. I looked down. The black and white text was stark, the title practically screaming at me. Resignation Addendum. My heart leaped into my throat. The terms were draconian. It stated that if I were to resign of my own accord, the company was not only exempt from paying any severance but was also entitled to sue me for massive damages. It was a modern-day indentured servitude contract. It was insane. But then I saw the signature at the bottom, and my blood ran cold. The flamboyant, confident script was unmistakable. I'd know it anywhere. It was mine. But how could I have possibly signed something so one-sided? I had no memory of it whatsoever. My mind raced, sifting through fragmented memories until one, long forgotten, snapped into focus. It was 6 months ago. Chloe had taken a rare night off and we'd gone to see a movie. On the way home, she'd pulled a document out of her purse. Ethan, she'd said, your contract is almost up. This is just a standard renewal addendum. Sign here. I had loved her for 6 years. Trusting her was second nature. I hadn't even glanced at the document. I just took the pen and signed my name. I never imagined that, even back then, she was already setting a trap for me. In that moment, it felt like an icy hand had closed around my heart, squeezing until I couldn't breathe. 6 years. Our entire relationship had been nothing but a long, calculated con. Before I could even process the depth of her betrayal, Ryan's sickeningly sweet voice chimed in again. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his face a picture of sincerity. Ethan, don't listen to her. She's just saying that because she's angry. Her bark is worse than her bite. Deep down, she cares about you more than anyone. He turned to Chloe, his voice wheedling. Chloe, look, I think Ethan knows he was wrong. Why don't you be the bigger person and forgive him? If he just apologizes, I know you won't really want him to leave, right? They were a perfectly rehearsed double act. And of course, Chloe bought it completely. She lifted her chin, her face radiating smug satisfaction. Fine, she said, looking at me as if she were bestowing a great favor. Since Ryan has spoken up for you, I'll give you one more chance. Now, call that friend of yours and tell him you're not coming. She paused, her eyes glinting with a greedy, urgent light. And then you will compile all of your client files and project plans and hand them over to Ryan. Do that, and we can pretend today never happened. I let out a silent, cold laugh. So that was the endgame. The $800,000 demand, the forged addendum, it was all leading to this. What they really wanted was my life's work, the network and resources I had spent years building. In their dreams, I slowly lifted my head, the shock in my eyes replaced by an icy calm. I looked at them, but instead of calling them out, I played along. Okay, I said, the single word barely a whisper. Chloe and Ryan exchanged a look of pure delight. She thought I had finally broken, that she had me completely under her thumb. That's more like it, she said, her smile returning, her voice light and airy. It's good to know when you're beaten, Ethan. You're finally showing some sense. She held out her hand impatiently. Well, hand over the files. I looked at her entitled expression, and my own smile grew colder. Fine, I said, but it's going to cost you. The smile vanished from her face. She frowned, her eyes narrowing. What are you talking about? I pushed her ridiculous addendum aside with a contemptuous flick of my wrist. My voice was quiet, but every word was crystal clear. You were so eager to settle your accounts. Well, now it's my turn. Let's settle ours. She looked at me as if I'd told the world's worst joke, then let out a derisive snort. You're really going to stand there and nickel and dime me? It's pathetic. I can't wait to see what kind of pocket change you think I owe you. I ignored her taunts. As everyone watched in confusion, I calmly pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and opened a budgeting app I'd been using for the past 6 years. After a few taps, I turned the screen to face her. The arrogant, composed woman from a moment ago was gone. The phone's glow illuminated a face frozen in shock. On the screen was a detailed, seemingly endless digital ledger. February 14th, 2019. Chloe's birthday. Hermes Birkin bag, $13,888. March 24th, 2019. Valentine's Day. Cartier love bracelet, $5,600. May 6th, 2020. Anniversary dinner at Alinea, $889. I looked up from the phone and met her wide, shocked eyes. Ms. Vance, I said slowly, enunciating every word. Let's go through this, item by item. I watched as the shock on her face morphed into humiliation, and I felt nothing at all. In fact, I continued, my voice as neutral as if I were discussing the weather, I should probably thank you. Thank me? She asked, completely bewildered. What are you talking about? I nodded, scrolling through the endless list on my phone. Yes, thank you for being so consistently hostile about my so-called lavish spending. I looked up from the screen, my gaze locking with hers. You were always telling me how tight money was at the company, that I needed to be more frugal, but then you'd turn around and buy yourself the newest designer bag, or get Ryan the latest iPhone. And me, I let out a short, self-deprecating laugh. I remember one time I had to drink all night with a major client to close a deal. He was so drunk he couldn't stand, and I was worried about him, so I paid for his car service home out of my own pocket. It was $30, I didn't even get a receipt. And you absolutely lost your mind over it. My voice was quiet, but each word landed like a hammer blow in the silent conference room. Everyone held their breath. The color was draining from Chloe's face. Ethan, that's a private matter. Shut your mouth. Do you want to air our dirty laundry in front of the entire company? But I kept going. You stood there, pointing your finger in my face, accusing me of using client dinners as an excuse to go out and party. You said I didn't appreciate your hard work, that I didn't care about the future of the company. You wouldn't listen to a word I said. You gave me the silent treatment for a week, blocked my number, everything. It wasn't until the client himself felt bad and came to the office to explain that you finally deigned to forgive me, unblocking me as if you were a queen granting a royal pardon. I was such a fool, I said, shaking my head as if to clear the memory. I told myself you were just stressed, that you needed someone to take it out on, so I just took it. And from that day on, just to keep you from accusing me again, I started keeping a record of every single cent I spent. I held up the phone, the glowing screen like a mirror reflecting her own ugliness back at her. I have a record of everything. You claimed you needed to keep your own money liquid for investment opportunities, so I ended up paying for everything for both of us. The Chanel lipstick, the Dior outfits, the expensive supplements for your mother, the new fishing gear for your father, even, my eyes drifted over to Ryan, whose face was now a sickly shade of gray, the birthday present you bought for Mr. Cole, that $5,000 Omega watch, and that business dinner the two of you had at that Michelin star restaurant, the one that cost over $1,000. It all went on my card. Isn't that right, Ms. Vance? The air in the room felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Ryan looked like he'd just swallowed a bug. Chloe's chest was rising and falling rapidly, but she was who she was. After a few tense seconds, she took a deep breath, composed herself, and even managed to produce a frosty smile. So that's what this is about. Fine, Ethan, she said, crossing her arms and regaining her usual air of superiority. To think you'd keep such detailed records of our 6 years together. I'm truly impressed. We'll call it a loan. I'll graciously deduct it from the $800,000 you owe me. Her tone was dripping with condescension. Can you even afford the rest? Ryan quickly jumped in, resuming his role as the great mediator. Ethan, what's the point of all this? We're all friends here. Why make such a scene? Chloe's already offering to cut you a break. Don't make things worse. A real man knows when to back down. Just apologize and we can all move on. He looked so pained, as if he genuinely had my best interests at heart. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. Just move on. I put my phone away and scanned the room, my eyes finally landing on Chloe's smug, confident face. Ms. Vance, Mr. Cole, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Who told you we were done? The smile on Chloe's face froze. The look of earnest concern on Ryan's face hardened. What are you talking about? Chloe demanded, her voice laced with irritation. What more could you possibly have to bring up now? I ignored her and walked to the head of the conference table, to the seat that used to be mine. There was a time when I was the heart and soul of this company. I ran my hand over the smooth surface of the table, as if wiping away not just dust, but the accumulated humiliation of the last 6 years. What we just discussed, I said, turning to face them and the rest of my former colleagues, was personal. Now let's talk business. I looked around the room. The senior employees here, you all remember what this company was like when I started 6 years ago, don't you? A few of the older employees nodded instinctively, then shot a nervous glance at Chloe and quickly looked down. There was no real business strategy, no management structure to speak of, and a client list you could count on one hand. It was me, Ethan Hayes, who spent 3 years pulling all-nighters, drinking myself sick at client meetings, and building this place from the ground up, one client, one system at a time. I created the entire operational and management framework this company runs on. For that, I'm billing you a $100,000 development fee. That seems fair, doesn't it? Chloe started to object, but I held up a finger to silence her. Don't worry, I'm not done. My eyes drifted to the framed patent certificates on the wall. During my time here, I single-handedly developed and secured 3 key patents that are central to this company's operations. You do intend to continue using them, correct? At this, Ryan jumped in, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. Ethan, you helped build this company. It's your baby as much as it is Chloe's. There are hundreds of people here who depend on this technology for their jobs. Are you really going to throw all of that away, just to be spiteful? His words hit their mark. Eyes from all over the room turned to me. It was a clever move, turning the employees against me. Too bad for him. I saw it coming a mile away. A cold smile touched my lips. Of course not. The company is free to continue using my patents. For the standard market licensing fee, of course. Let's say $200,000 per patent. That's $600,000 total. For the good of the employees, Ms. Vance, how would you like to handle the payment? I looked at Chloe's pale, bloodless face and spoke slowly and clearly. Add that to the $100,000 development fee. That's $700,000 in intangible assets that I personally created for this company. It's only fair that I be compensated for them. Wouldn't you agree? $700,000. The words fell like a physical weight into the silence of the room. Chloe's face was beyond pale. It was ashen. I watched her, feeling like an art critic observing a masterpiece as it begins to crumble. Let's tally it up. On the personal side, we'll call your loan $300,000, even though we both know it was more. On the business side, you owe me $700,000 for intellectual property. I held up 2 fingers in front of her face. Your $800,000 demand, minus the $300,000 you spent, leaves $500,000. My $700,000, minus your $500,000. Ms. Vance, have you done the math? You owe me $200,000. A collective gasp went through the room. Everyone was staring at me like I had lost my mind. And Chloe, the high and mighty CEO who was always in control, swayed on her feet, looking like she was about to collapse. Ryan quickly steadied her. After a long moment, Chloe finally found her voice, though it came out as a strangled shriek. You're insane. Ethan, we were in love for 6 years. Are you really going to destroy everything over a little bit of money? Have you no heart? She clutched Ryan's arm for support, her eyes filled with a look of profound betrayal. I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a raw, bitter laugh that echoed unervingly in the silent room. You want to talk about feelings now, Ms. Vance? I asked, my laughter dying, my voice turning to ice. Where were your feelings when you were waving that ridiculous contract in my face, demanding $800,000? Where were your feelings when you and your boy toy conspired to steal my marriage license right in front of me? Where were your feelings when you planned to bleed me dry and then kick me out with nothing but debt to my name? I took a step forward with each question, backing her up until she stumbled and fell into a chair. Now that you've lost the upper hand, now that you can't bully me anymore, now you want to talk about love? Chloe, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Because I'm ashamed for you. Ryan immediately jumped to his feet, positioning himself protectively in front of her. Ethan, how can you talk to her like that? She gave you 6 years of her life, the best years, and now you, a grown man, are trying to shake her down for money? Have you no shame? He looked so righteously indignant you'd think I was the villain. He scanned the room and declared with theatrical passion, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't be asking for $200,000. I'd give her everything I owned, just to thank her for her kindness. It was a great speech. I almost wanted to applaud. I shot him a contemptuous look. Talk is cheap. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and pay the $200,000 for her? The color drained from Ryan's face, leaving it a blotchy red. I was done wasting my breath on this clown. My eyes went back to Chloe, my voice flat and cold. Ms. Vance, cut the drama. You have 1 week to get me my money. $200,000. Don't be a penny short, or you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Without another glance at her twisted face, I turned and walked toward the door. Just as my hand reached the handle, my phone rang. I pulled it out. The caller ID said, "Mom." I answered quickly. "Hey, Mom, is everything okay?" "Ethan, where are you?" she asked, her voice full of cheerful energy. "Your father just got back from the store, and I've made a huge batch of your favorite dumplings. We're just waiting on you for dinner." Before I could answer, Chloe, who had been watching my every move, suddenly looked as though she'd been thrown a lifeline. Her eyes lit up. She'd heard my mom's voice. "Ethan, wait!" she shrieked, leaping from her chair and lunging at me. I was caught completely off guard, and she snatched the phone from my hand. She clutched it tightly, a triumphant smirk spreading across her face. "Mrs. Hayes," she said into the phone, her voice sickeningly sweet. "It's me, Chloe," she put on her most pitiful, wronged voice. "Mrs. Hayes, you have to talk to Ethan. He's breaking up with me. He doesn't want me anymore. We were supposed to get our license today. The wedding was next month. I know how much you wanted this for us. Please, you have to talk some sense into him." She ended the call with a dramatic sob, then turned to me with a cold, triumphant smile. "Now your mother knows. Just wait until she and your father get a hold of you." She looked at me, utterly confident, expecting to hear my parents' fury erupt from the phone. She knew how much they adored her, how desperately they wanted us to get married. This was her ace in the hole, her final play to get me back under her thumb. Even Ryan put on a look of magnanimous relief. "Ethan, you're just too impulsive. Big decisions like this, you should really discuss them with your family first. You might not listen to us, but surely you'll listen to your own mother." But after a 2-second pause, my mom's voice came through the speaker, clear and calm. "I already know all about it. It's not a surprise." Before Chloe could even process that, my mom continued cheerfully. "Oh, and Ethan, I've already set you up with someone. It's my best friend's daughter, Sophia. She's a wonderful girl, beautiful and kind. I just got off the phone with her, and she's on her way over now, so don't you be late." And with that, my mom hung up. Chloe stared at the phone, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You're going home?" she whispered. It was only then that she seemed to finally notice the suitcase standing by my feet. Maybe because it was just one small bag, it hadn't registered. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. "You've already packed? You're really leaving? And what was that about being set up? You have me. Why would you need to be set up with someone else?" I had to laugh. It was a full-sized suitcase, and she was only just now seeing it. Ever since Ryan came into the picture, she had made a habit of ignoring me. My contributions, my feelings, the way he constantly provoked and undermined me, and every single one of the second chances I had given her. In the past, her neglect would have hurt me deeply, but now I felt nothing. "I've been serious this whole time, Chloe," I said calmly. "I quit my job. I'm moving home, and since we're broken up, what's wrong with my mother setting me up on a date?" For a split second, I thought I saw a flash of panic in her eyes. She rushed forward and grabbed my arm. "Ethan, I forbid you to leave, and I don't agree to this breakup. It took 2 of us to start this relationship. You can't just end it on your own." It was almost funny. When I tried to stop her from getting too close to Ryan, she called me jealous and possessive. Now that I was giving her exactly what she wanted, she was trying to stop me. It made no sense. I shook her hand off my arm. "It doesn't matter if you agree or not. We're done," I said, enunciating each word. "Now get out of my way. I have a bus to catch." Ryan seized the opportunity. "Why are you in such a rush, Ethan? Is it because you've already got someone else lined up? How could you do that to Chloe? That's emotional cheating." Normally, that would have been all it took for Chloe to join in and start attacking me too. But this time, to my surprise, she snapped at him. "Ryan, shut up. I trust Ethan. He wouldn't do that." Both Ryan and I were taken aback. I never expected her to defend me. Before I could make sense of it, she was standing in front of me, taking my hands in hers, her eyes full of emotion. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so inappropriate with Ryan. I shouldn't have married him against your wishes, or moved them into our home. I was wrong to put them first. I lost my perspective. I know you're furious with me, and you have every right to be. But I see my mistake now, and I swear I'll change. Please, can you forgive me? Give me one more chance. Let's get back together." I was stunned. All this time, I thought she was just clueless, that she didn't realize how much she was hurting me. But she knew all along. Even though my love for her was dead, a fresh wave of coldness washed over me. I pulled my hands away as if her touch had burned me. Chloe, I can't forgive you. There are no more chances. I've given you 100 chances before this, and you threw every single one of them away. The final one vanished the day you married him. I picked up my suitcase, stepped around her, and started walking toward the bus station. Panic flared in her eyes again, and she started to follow. Ethan, wait, we need to talk about this. A second later, a loud groan came from behind me. I turned to see Ryan doubled over, clutching his stomach. Chloe, he gasped, I think it's my stomach. It hurts so bad. Can you take me to the hospital? The same old trick. He was always faking some illness to get Chloe's sympathy and make me look like the bad guy. He'd done it a dozen times, provoking me until I was about to lose my temper, then punching himself in the gut and collapsing just as Chloe walked in, claiming I'd attacked him for no reason. His acting was terrible, but Chloe always fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. She'd rush to his side, cooing over him and glaring at me with disgust, never even asking for my side of the story. I fully expected her to do the same thing now, to drop everything and rush him to the emergency room. But to my absolute shock, she just gave him a brief, dismissive glance. Ryan, I'm busy. Call a cab. She turned back to me, her eyes glistening with tears, about to speak, when Ryan's voice cut in again. He was pale, his lip trembling as he put on a brave face. It's okay, Chloe. You go talk to Ethan. He's more important. I can make it to the hospital on my own. And with that, his legs buckled, and he collapsed to the ground. Leo burst into terrified tears. Daddy, what's wrong? Somebody help, take him to the hospital. He's dying. A flicker of pity crossed Chloe's face. Her resolve wavered. She still cared. She sighed and looked at me apologetically. Ethan, I can't just leave him here. Could be serious. I'll just take him to the hospital and I'll be right back. Please, will you wait for me? Before I could answer, she was already helping Ryan into a cab. I watched them speed off, not surprised at all. Once again, she had chosen him. But this time, I wasn't going to wait around for her to come back. I turned and walked away, heading for the bus station without a backward glance. A few minutes later, a message from Ryan popped up. It was a video of Chloe, fawning over him in a private VIP hospital room she had apparently rented, surrounded by a team of nurses. See, Ethan? The accompanying text read. When it comes down to it, she'll always choose me. His taunts meant nothing to me. I turned off my phone, showed my ticket, and got on the bus. The moment I sat down, my phone started buzzing incessantly. It was Chloe. I ignored the calls, but then came a flood of texts. Ethan, I'm back. Where did you go? I told you to wait. Another read. Are you on the bus? Where are you from? Tell me your hometown. I'll come to you. It was almost funny. She'd been to my hometown with me half a dozen times, and she still didn't even know what state it was in. That's how much attention she paid. I didn't bother replying. I just blocked her number and deleted the messages. For hours later, the bus pulled into my hometown. My parents were waiting for me at the station. The second I stepped off, they rushed over, grabbing my bag. Ethan, you're finally home, my dad said, his voice thick with emotion. You have no idea how much we've missed you. I hadn't seen them in a while, and I was struck by how much more gray hair they had, how many more lines were etched on their faces. A lump formed in my throat. For years, Chloe had guilt-tripped me into working through every holiday, claiming the company needed me, and as a result, I'd barely seen my parents. She'd always looked down on them for being from a small town and refused to let them move in with us. When I suggested buying them a place nearby, she'd complained about the expense. I'd let her stop me from taking care of them, and the guilt was overwhelming. I vowed to make it up to them. Back at their house, I devoured a mountain of my mom's homemade dumplings. That night, free from Chloe's drama, I slept more soundly than I had in years. The next morning, my mom practically dragged me out of bed. Ethan, get up. I've set you up with Mrs. Miller's daughter, Sophia. You're meeting her at 2 o'clock at the Oak Tree Cafe. She was practically bouncing with excitement, a mischievous glint in her eye. Mrs. Miller was my mom's best friend. As for her daughter, it had been so long, all I could remember was a little girl who used to follow me around everywhere when we were kids. I had a visceral aversion to the whole idea of a setup and had zero expectations. Maybe Chloe had just broken me too thoroughly, but I was done with relationships. Still, looking at the hopeful expression on my mom's face, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. I'd go just to make her happy. I threw on the first t-shirt and jeans I could find and was heading for the door when my mom stopped me, looking me up and down with a deep frown. You're wearing that? Ethan, honestly, can't you try a little? She's a beautiful girl. I had to hide a smile. In my mom's eyes, every girl was a beautiful girl. I just nodded. I know, Mom. I'll be on my best behavior. At 2 o'clock sharp, I was at the Oak Tree Cafe. I found a table by the window and was mindlessly scrolling through my phone when a message from Mark popped up. Hey man, you settled in yet? That head of design office is waiting for you whenever you're ready. I texted back, here. On that date my mom set up and put my phone away. It wasn't time to think about work yet. First, I had to get that $200,000 from Chloe. Once that mess was cleaned up, then I could think about the future. Just then, a clear, musical voice with a hint of familiarity spoke from above me. Excuse me, are you Ethan Hayes? I looked up and my brain short-circuited. The woman standing before me was stunning. She wore a simple white dress that made her skin look like porcelain. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, impossibly glossy. Her features were delicate, and a perfect, gentle smile played on her lips. She looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, completely out of place in our little small-town coffee shop. This was no ordinary small-town girl. She looked like a movie star. I tried to reconcile the image of this radiant woman with the memory I had of a little girl with pigtails and a smudge of dirt on her nose who used to follow me around, climbing trees and catching frogs. The two just wouldn't connect. She noticed me staring, but instead of looking annoyed, she covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes crinkling into a beautiful smile. What's the matter, Ethan? After all these years, you'd think you'd be tired of looking at me by now. That teasing tone, those familiar eyes. It clicked. Sophia? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You finally got it, she said, sliding into the seat across from me and ordering a latte like she'd been there 1,000 times. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten all about your little shadow. I was floored. It was really her. When we were kids, her family had fallen on hard times. Her dad had gotten into some serious debt, and her mom had brought her back here to lay low for a while. My mom, being the saint she is, took them under her wing, always having them over for dinner and helping them out however she could. Sophia had become my little shadow back then, always trailing after me, more of a tomboy than a proper little girl. But looking at her now, with the discreet but obviously expensive watch on her wrist and her designer clothes, she didn't exactly look like she was struggling. As if reading my mind, she explained. My dad's business had failed back then. He was in a lot of trouble, so my mom brought me here to stay out of the way. He eventually got back on his feet and moved us abroad to be with him. It all made sense now. No wonder she seemed like a completely different person. So what brings you back now? I asked. She stirred her coffee, her eyes meeting mine. They seemed to sparkle. My mom told me you were home, she said softly. So I flew back. My heart did a little flip. She came back for me? A light blush colored her cheeks, but she nodded, her gaze unwavering. I wanted to see you. Her words were so direct, so honest. It felt like a stone had been dropped into the stagnant pond of my heart, sending ripples across the surface. It was almost comical. I'd spent 6 years with a woman who couldn't even remember the name of my hometown. And here was Sophia, a girl I'd nearly forgotten, who had flown halfway around the world just on the off chance of seeing me. The difference was staggering. Maybe it was the easy atmosphere, or the genuine warmth in her eyes, but Sophia and I talked for hours. We talked about everything from embarrassing childhood memories to our lives over the past decade to our hopes for the future. I was amazed at how well we clicked. As we were leaving, Sophia pulled out her phone. Ethan, we should exchange numbers. Let's keep in touch. I hesitated for a second, but then, for the first time in a long time, I listened to my gut. I nodded and pulled out my own phone. I'm looking forward to it, she said with a smile. Looking at her new contact photo on my screen, I couldn't help but smile back. The next few weeks back home were peaceful, a welcome respite from the chaos of my old life. With Mark's help, I started my new job at his apparel company. I had been expecting a small, local operation, but on my first day, I was blown away. He had a state-of-the-art facility, a modern office building with fully automated production lines. I couldn't believe how much my hometown had changed. Mark seemed to have anticipated my shock. He just laughed and clapped me on the shoulder. You didn't really think things were still the same, did you? We're a major player in the industry now, just as respected as any of the big firms in Chicago. And with you on board, we're going to be unstoppable. Come on, let me show you your office. I had it custom designed for you. When he opened the door to my new studio, I was speechless. It was a huge, light-filled space, stocked with every tool and fabric imaginable. There was even a high-end massage chair in the corner and a computer setup that must have cost a fortune. It was a world-class design studio, the kind you'd see in magazines. At Chloe's company, I didn't even have my own cubicle. I worked in a crowded, open-plan bullpen. I once asked for a better graphics card to speed up my rendering times, and she accused me in front of the entire team of trying to get the company to pay for my gaming habit. She denied the request and docked my pay for 3 months. Looking back, I realized just how much of my life I had wasted. In a space like this, I could finally focus and create my best work. During this time, my parents continued their campaign to set me up with Sophia. One evening, after another one of my parents' casual dinner invitations, I was walking Sophia home. Suddenly, she stopped. She took a deep breath, as if gathering her courage, and then looked me straight in the eye. "Ethan," she said, "I have feelings for you. I've had them for a long time. I was going to tell you after college, but then I heard you were with someone, so I kept it to myself. When my mom told me you had broken up and were moving home, I begged her to set us up. Ethan, I've been in love with you for as long as I can remember. Will you let me? Will you give me a chance?" Her face was flushed, but her eyes were shining, bright and hopeful. Her sudden confession caught me completely off guard. My heart started pounding, and I could feel my face getting hot. I was so stunned by her sincerity that I didn't know what to do. The space between us seemed to shrink. She rose up on her toes, leaning in, and I didn't move away. And then, a shrill voice shattered the moment. "What do you think you're doing?" A figure blurred past me, shoving Sophia and me apart. I stared in disbelief. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" It had only been a few weeks, but she looked like a completely different person. Her hair was a mess, her clothes were dirty, and the polished, perfect CEO was gone. I almost didn't recognize her. Her eyes welled up with tears the moment she saw me. "Ethan," she cried, her voice thick with self-pity. "Do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you?" "I was wrong, Ethan, I know that now. I fired Ryan. I deleted his number. I even got the marriage annulled. I swear, I'll never speak to him or his son again. Please, don't be mad at me anymore. Come back to Chicago with me. We can get married. Have you forgotten? Today is our anniversary. I've already booked the venue. The dress is ordered. All that's missing is you." Sophia, seeing Chloe, looked down, disappointed, and started to step away. But I pulled her back, wrapping my arm around her. "I'm not going anywhere with you," I told Chloe, "and my girlfriend wouldn't want me to." Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. Chloe just stared, her face a mask of disbelief. "Girlfriend? Ethan, you told me you would only ever love me. How could you be with someone else?" Then, a look of understanding crossed her face, and she scoffed. "I get it. She's an actress, right? You hired her just to make me jealous." "Ethan, I'm telling you the truth. I deleted everything, all of Ryan's pictures, his number, everything. Please stop being angry. I've been going out of my mind without you." She pulled out her phone to show me, and sure enough, there was no trace of him. I remembered all the times I'd begged her to do that, all the excuses she'd made. And now she'd done it just like that. Too bad it was too little, too late. I turned and laced my fingers through Sophia's. "She's not an actress, Chloe. She's my girlfriend, and this is real. You should have known, the moment you married him, that you and I were over for good." Chloe stood rooted to the spot, looking as if I'd physically struck her. Her gaze was fixed on our joined hands, and her voice was strained. "What are you talking about? You came all this way. Wasn't it to celebrate our anniversary? Don't you even remember?" I didn't say anything, just looked at her. The audacity of her question was almost laughable. I remembered her 100-day anniversary with Ryan. She'd given the entire company the day off, rented out the most expensive ballroom downtown, and spent a fortune on a citywide fireworks display. The local news had thought it was a high society wedding. And where was I that day? Stuck at the office until midnight, volunteering for guard duty. She never even offered an explanation. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. My silence seemed to confirm her suspicions. Her voice rose, becoming shrill. "You were never like this before, Ethan. Are you really going to throw away 6 years because of one mistake? Or was this what you wanted all along? An excuse to leave me for someone else?" Sophia, looking uncomfortable, took a step back, but I held her hand firmly. "Ethan, maybe I should go," she whispered. "You two should talk." "No," I said, my voice calm and steady. "It's time to settle things once and for all." Seeing my firm grip on Sophia's hand, Chloe's desperation turned to anger. She glared at us, her eyes welling with tears. "Fine, then tell me what she has that I don't. Education, career, looks. How can this country bumpkin possibly compare to me?" Chloe clearly hadn't done her homework. Sophia wasn't some country bumpkin. She was the heiress to a multi-billion-dollar fortune. I looked at her, my expression unreadable. "You haven't changed a bit, Chloe. Still so short-sighted. Leaving aside the fact that Sophia's background is far more impressive than yours, even if she were from the middle of nowhere, At least she's honest and decent. She wouldn't be cheating on me. If this is all you came here to say, then we're done. I turned to leave with Sophia, but Chloe, after a moment of stunned silence, grabbed my arm. You can't go. You haven't explained anything. In the ensuing struggle, something fell from my pocket, landing on the pavement with a soft, metallic clink. It was a ring, catching the dim streetlight in a silver arc. The world seemed to stop for a second. Chloe stared at the ring, then lunged for it, snatching it up and clutching it to her chest as if it were a holy relic. So that's it, she exclaimed, her voice filled with manic relief. This was all a game, wasn't it? You were planning to propose all along, and this was just some elaborate test. She was beaming, already picturing herself in a white dress. Okay, you win. I admit it. This place isn't exactly romantic, and there are no cameras, but I suppose you can propose now. The irony was suffocating. I thought of all the nights I'd waited for her with flowers, all the times I'd saved for months to buy her a piece of jewelry, only to be dismissed with a cold, I don't need this. And she really thought, after everything, that we could just pick up where we left off. A cold smile touched my lips. I took the ring from her hand and held it up to the light. Chloe, take a closer look. See whose initials are engraved on the inside. She leaned in, her face alight with anticipation. Then she froze. The initials engraved inside the band weren't CV. They were SH. She snatched the ring back, turning it over and over in her hands as if she could will the letters to change. But they wouldn't. Finally, tears streamed down her face. Why? She choked out, her voice raw. How long have you even known her? How can you be marrying her? Is this all just to get back at me? To hurt me? And in that moment, all I felt was a profound sense of peace. The woman who had once been my queen, so arrogant and untouchable, was now just a pathetic, desperate mess, clinging to the last shreds of her pride. It was time for the curtain to fall on this tragedy. Just as Chloe's world was shattering around her, Sophia, who had been silent all this time, let out a soft, dismissive laugh. It was a quiet sound, but it landed like a pinprick, deflating the last of Chloe's dignity. Ms. Vance, Sophia said, her voice cool and clear, his relationship with me has nothing to do with you. You're his ex-girlfriend, the one who left him for another man. You really have no right to an opinion. Chloe whipped her head around, her eyes blazing like an angry lioness. And who the hell are you? She snarled, all her pent-up rage and humiliation finally finding a target. What cheap tricks did you use to seduce him, you shameless slut? I'm going to kill you. The words were barely out of her mouth before the sharp crack of a slap echoed in the quiet street. I lowered my hand, looking impassively at the red handprint blooming on Chloe's cheek. Watch your mouth, I said, my voice dangerously low. Don't you dare insult my fiancé. Her expression shifted from shock to disbelief, and then to a burning, bottomless hatred. Fiancé? She repeated, the word tasting like poison in her mouth. The last spark of hope in her eyes died. I was done talking. Sophia and I grew up together. We're childhood sweethearts. And Ms. Vance, it's time for you to accept reality. We are over. I bit down hard on the last two words, drawing a final, definitive line under the last 6 years of my life. That's when she finally broke. She covered her face, tears of humiliation and rage streaming through her fingers. You bastard, Ethan. You used to defend me if anyone even looked at me the wrong way. And now you're hitting me. For her. You've changed. You don't love me anymore. She was wailing like a child who'd had her favorite toy taken away, a complete and utter mess. But I felt nothing, not even a flicker of pity. I was just tired of the show. I had no more time for her hysterics. I took Sophia's hand and turned to leave. Don't go, she shrieked, grabbing my arm with a desperate strength, her nails digging into my skin. Ethan, tell me the truth. After all these years, did you ever really love me? I didn't stop or turn around, but then her gaze fixed on my wrist, and a flicker of hope returned to her eyes, like a drowning woman spotting a piece of driftwood. No, you're lying, she cried. If you really didn't love me, why are you still wearing the watch I gave you? I finally stopped and looked down at my wrist. It was an old mechanical watch, the crystal scratched, the leather band worn and frayed. She had bought it for me the year we graduated, with half of her first paycheck from her internship. A man needs a good watch in the business world, she'd said, so clients will take you seriously. I had been so touched, so grateful. I'd held that watch in my hand and sworn that one day, I would make all her dreams come true, that I would put her in that corner office. Seeing my hesitation, she thought she had me. She took a tentative step forward, her voice softening. You can't forget, can you? I can't forget our 10 years together either. We can just pretend none of this ever happened. Forget Ryan. Forget her. We can start over. Please. She looked at me with those eyes, the same eyes I had once been so lost in, the eyes I would have done anything for. Now, all I felt when I looked at them was disgust. I unclasped the watch. The moment the cool metal left my skin, it felt like a heavy chain I'd been wearing for years had finally been broken. Then, as Chloe watched with hopeful eyes, I tossed the watch into a nearby trash can. It hit the side of the metal bin with a dull thud. "Thanks for the reminder," I said, looking at her face, which had gone completely white. A small, cruel smile played on my lips. I almost forgot to get rid of that. Without another glance at her, I turned to Sophia and smiled. "You'll have to help me pick out a new one." "Of course," she said, her own smile bright and genuine. "Whatever you want. From now on, I'll take care of you." Every word was a dagger aimed straight at Chloe's heart. The last bit of color drained from her face. She stared at our intertwined hands, her eyes burning with a hatred so intense it was almost tangible. After a long, tense silence, she started to laugh. It was a chilling, humorless sound, like something crawling up from the depths of hell. "Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with venom, "are you absolutely sure you want to make an enemy of me? For her?" I didn't bother to answer, just turned to leave with Sophia. "Stop right there," she shrieked. "I'm giving you one last chance, Ethan. Think very carefully. The Vance family runs this industry. You know that better than anyone. If you walk out that door with this slut, I swear to you, your friend's little company won't get a single new order. I will make you, and everyone you care about, pay for this." I looked into her eyes and knew she meant it. She thought she had found my weakness. She was wrong. She was actually foolish enough to believe her company could survive without me. Without my patents, without the sales channels I had spent years building, what did she have? Ryan? He was useless. And after the way she treated her most loyal employees, the company's morale was in the toilet. She was holding on to an empty shell, and she didn't even know it. "Is that so?" I said, finally stopping and turning to face her. I gave her a look of pity. "I'll be waiting." Then, as if an afterthought, I added, "Oh, and you'd better hurry. You're running out of time." Without waiting for a reply, I turned my back on her shocked, contorted face and walked away with Sophia. After making sure Sophia got home safely, I drove straight to Mark's company. This was my new home base. I had barely sat down on the sofa in my new office when the door burst open with a loud bang. My new assistant, Kevin, scrambled in, his face pale and covered in sweat, his eyes wide with terror. "Mr. Hayes, it's a disaster. A complete disaster." Mark rushed out from his own office at the commotion. "Kevin, calm down," he said, grabbing the panicked assistant's arm. "It can't be that bad." "It is. It's that bad," Kevin gasped, his voice shaking. "That psycho, Chloe Vance. She's using all her family's influence, calling every supplier and partner in the industry, telling them that if they work with us, they're making an enemy of the Vance Corporation. We've already had 3 major clients call to cancel their contracts." Mark slammed his fist on his desk, the veins in his forehead pulsing with anger. "Damn it, that vindictive witch. She's trying to ruin us. Ethan, what are we going to do? We just expanded the production line. Without those orders, we'll be losing a fortune every day." I, however, acted as if I hadn't heard a word. I calmly brewed myself a cup of tea, blew on it gently, and took a sip. Then I glanced at the clock on the wall. 6 p.m., right on schedule. I met Mark and Kevin's frantic gazes with a calm smile. "Don't worry about her. Let her have her little tantrum. It'll be her last." I set down my teacup, my voice firm. "By this time tomorrow, the Vance Corporation will cease to exist." Meanwhile, back at the Vance Corporation, Chloe hung up her last phone call with a triumphant smile. She picked up her glass of wine, swirling the deep red liquid. "Oh, Ethan," she murmured to the empty room, "you're still so naive. Without any orders, how will you support your little tramp? How will you rebuild your career? You'll come crawling back to me. You'll beg." She savored the thought, a cruel smile playing on her lips. But before her victory lap was complete, her office door burst open with a bang. "Ms. Vance!" her HR manager cried, stumbling into the room, his face a ghostly white. Chloe's smile froze on her face. She frowned, annoyed. "What is the meaning of this? Have you forgotten all sense of decorum?" But the manager didn't seem to hear her. He was gasping for breath. "Ms. Vance, it's the tech department and marketing. They've all resigned. Every last one of them. They said they couldn't in good conscience continue to work for someone who would treat Mr. Hayes so unfairly." "What?" Chloe shot to her feet, the wine glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the floor, splashing red wine all over her expensive suit. She stood there, stunned, for a full 10 seconds before the reality of the situation hit her. and she was consumed by a wave of pure rage. Traitors! They're all traitors! She shrieked, slamming her hand on her desk. I pay them. I'm the one who signs their checks, not Ethan Hayes. Ungrateful bastards. After everything I've done for them, they choose him over me. Her chest was heaving with rage. She jabbed a finger at the terrified HR manager. You tell them they can leave, but they won't get a cent of severance. And I want a note in every single one of their files. We'll see who's willing to hire them after I'm done with them. The HR manager looked even more miserable than before. He shook his head, his expression one of utter despair. I told them that, Ms. Vance. They said they don't care about the money. They'd rather work with Mr. Hayes for free. They said a wise man knows when to jump from a sinking ship. His voice was quiet, but his words landed like a sledgehammer. The tech department, Ethan had built it from the ground up. He held all the key patents. The marketing department, Ethan had spent 6 years on the road, building that network one client, one drink at a time. All this time she had thought of the company as hers, as a Vance asset. Now she understood. They weren't hers. They were Ethan's. She remembered Ryan's smug, confident face, telling her that Ethan was just an employee, that all the real power, the real assets, belonged to her. And she had believed him, for that worthless sycophant. She had thrown away the most valuable asset she had ever possessed. A tidal wave of regret crashed over her, so powerful it threatened to drown her. She took a deep, shuddering breath, forcing herself to regain her composure. She lifted her chin, her voice regaining its familiar, arrogant tone. Let them go. There's a line out the door of people who would kill to work here. I'll just hire a new team, a better team. I'll pay them double if I have to. She refused to believe there was a problem money couldn't solve. The HR manager just looked at her, his face a numb mask. He hesitated, then finally said, his voice barely a whisper, "But Ms. Vance, there's no money. We can't even make payroll this month, let alone offer double salaries." The last thread of Chloe's composure snapped. She glared at the HR manager, her eyes burning with a desperate fire. Enough! I'll handle the finances. I have an investor lined up. Ryan was just about to close the deal. He's very interested. Once we get that capital injection, everything will be fine. She waved a dismissive hand. Now go. Cancel all my afternoon appointments. I'm going to meet with him myself. The HR manager opened his mouth as if to say something, then just sighed, nodded numbly, and backed out of the room. The moment the door clicked shut, Chloe's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the expensive carpet. An investor? There was no investor. It was a lie, a fiction she and Ryan had created to siphon money from the company accounts. She just wanted to run, to get out before the whole thing came crashing down around her, before she was buried under a mountain of debt she could never repay. She slipped out the back door of her office and into the emergency stairwell. The sharp click of her heels on the concrete steps echoed in the silence, a frantic, desperate rhythm. Almost there. Just a few more flights to the parking garage. If she could just get to her car. She shoved open the heavy fire door at the bottom of the stairs and froze. Standing on the other side were 2 uniformed police officers, their expressions grim. The officer in front held up his badge. Chloe Vance? You're under arrest for commercial fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement. You need to come with us. The next time I saw Chloe was at the police station. They had called me in to give a statement about the company's operations. That's where I learned that Ryan, her most trusted confidant, had cleaned out the company's bank accounts the day before and fled the country with his new girlfriend. He'd left her with nothing but a hollowed-out company and a mountain of debt she could never hope to repay. She had brought it all on herself. I calmly gave my statement, signed the paperwork, and was heading for the exit when I saw her. 2 officers were escorting her from an interrogation room. Her makeup was gone. Her face was pale and drawn. Her hair was a mess. The arrogant, powerful woman I had known was gone. She saw me too. Her eyes immediately fell to my hand, intertwined with Sophia's. And in that instant, the dam of her composure finally broke. Her eyes reddened instantly. Her lips moved, as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just lowered her head, and silent tears streamed down her face. I turned, took Sophia's hand, and walked out of the station without a backward glance. Outside, the sun was shining. In the following weeks, Chloe's company was forced into bankruptcy, leaving her with insurmountable debt. She started texting me from a new number, each message a litany of regret. Ethan, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't been so blind about Ryan, none of this would have happened. If I had another chance, I would do everything differently. He ruined my life. I ignored the messages, deleting them like spam. The next I heard of her was 6 months later on the news. Apparently, having lost everything and everyone, Chloe had become obsessed with finding Ryan. She blamed him for her downfall. After a 6-month search, she tracked him down to a beach town in Florida, where he was living it up with his new girlfriend, and she stabbed him to death. As for his son, Leo, he was sent to a group home. He was a bully there, always stealing food from the other kids. One day, he stole something that had been laced with rat poison and died. The day the news broke was the day Sophia and I got our marriage license. It felt like the last dark cloud from my past had finally dissipated. I looked across the room at my new wife and walked toward her, toward my future.